Anyway, for those who don't know, last weekend, and I'll just preface all of it. So last weekend, I invited 3 friends over, so 4 of us in total. We were all like, we all have VR headsets, and you know, obviously I've been looking at getting a new VR headset, and like one of my other friends was interested in getting a new VR headset himself. So like, you know, all this VR headset discussion stuff going on, and I was just like, it would be great if we could just, you know, like share headsets and like see what's, you know, what we like out of them and stuff like that. And just have fun too. I mean, so like we weren't like getting together like just to review these headsets. Like we were, you know, just having fun playing VR games. But nonetheless, one of my friends has a Valve Index. And for those who don't know, the Valve Index is, you know, the top of the line, like $1,000 headset, you know, all of the best perks, you know. And then, so that was one friend. I'll call him Index friend. And then my other friend has an HTC Vive. And I have an Oculus Quest. And then my 4th friend, you might be wondering, is actually one that maybe's perspective will be the most interesting because he does not have a VR headset. So yeah, he, you know, has no like prior preconceptions of like what he should experience or see, I guess. I'll give the conclusion first. So the conclusion that kind of came to was actually that there wasn't, like, people on the internet talk about the differences between these headsets so much, like a lot. You know, everyone's like, oh, this one has such a better field of view, like you can see so much more, or oh, it's so much clearer, like oh, the resolution's better, oh, the frame rates are higher, oh, you can do this and that, and blah 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 blah. Throw it all away. Just throw that all away. Like, all these headsets were more comparable than you would initially be led on to believe, I would say. Like, it was for me. Like, my big realization from this was that I didn't think that the differences were super huge. So, like, spending $1,000 on a Valve Index versus, you know, the $400 I spent on the Oculus Quest was just, like, not as big of a difference as I was imagining it would be. But that being said, there are plenty of differences, and they do matter. Yeah, so I guess the first thing I noticed about the Valve Index, like very first thing, was that it was built really well. Like, I don't even know how to explain that other than just, you know, it was kind of, the Quest felt a little more like a, I don't know, toy, I guess. And the Index felt more like a piece of hardware, you know, it was like just more rigid, good plastic. I don't know what they use, but it just feels good. Like, I don't know why it's such a little thing, but it does kind of affect like how you handle it and stuff. But yeah, connected to the PC was how we tested it. There was one thing that I really wanted to test with that, actually, which is that like when I have the Quest tethered, I kind of, at least I used to experience some latency. Like with beatsaber, it was most noticeable, you know? So like if I played beatsaber on the Quest standalone, I wouldn't have any latency. The feedback was immediate. But if I played tethered, there would be some latency, and I kind of thought I was just getting used to that over time, but I actually think they fixed it. I think that beatsaber has less latency now, because when I tried it on the Valve Index, I thought when I tried beatsaber on the Valve Index, it was gonna be like, holy shit, 120 frames a second, like super responsive, perfect tracking, you know, all of that stuff, right? You'd think that like all of that would be super important for like really good Beat Saber play. And I would say it certainly felt nice, but I definitely didn't think it was like a game changer. Like, I didn't feel like it really made me play differently or anything like that. So that was something that was interesting. At least I found it really interesting. I totally thought, like, the Quest runs at 72 hertz, you know? The Vive runs at 90 hertz, and then the Index can go up to 144 hertz. So I totally thought, like, going from 72 hertz to 120 hertz, like, especially with a fast-paced game like Beat Saber, like, I thought for sure that was going to be, like, mind-blowing. I thought I was going to be like, whoa, like, holy shit, I can see the Matrix, and just, like, hit all the blocks. But it wasn't like that. It was nice though, and it was noticeable. It was definitely noticeable. So like, you know, it's more of like a comfort thing, I feel like, more than a like necessity. But yeah, it was super interesting. I totally thought that it was gonna like be like, I don't know. I had high expectations, I guess. So the expectations weren't met, but yeah, like if you tried the Index for a while and then tried the Quest. Oh, well, okay, so yeah, I mean, this is where I can talk about my friend's experience, right? So, you know, my friend who owned the Index and had only used the Index up until then, when he used the Quest tethered, he made, and so initially he made no comments about a few things that I thought for sure he would have. He made no comments about the resolution. He didn't notice like a visual resolution difference initially, at least. And he didn't feel bothered by the frame rate. So, and he runs pretty much everything at 120 hertz, I think, on his Index. But yeah, so he didn't notice those things, which was interesting. It was actually super, super interesting. The main thing, the biggest thing that like everybody commented, like all four of us commented on this, the biggest thing were the controllers, by far. That was where the most opinions were. The visuals on each of the three headsets were not like the game changers. They were not the things that we were like excited about. Yeah, the controllers were a big deal. I mean, you guys might already know, but in case you don't, this is an Oculus Touch controller. So it looks like this. It has this ring, and that's for tracking purposes because the camera needs to see the ring, and so I hold the controllers like this. It fits pretty comfortably in my hand. Yeah, so here you go. This is an Oculus. This is what I've been holding all the time in VR. Yeah, basically you just, you know, I just grab it like, oops, sorry. I just grab it like this. And then like my middle finger's kind of on the grab button, and then my pointer finger's on the trigger. Yeah, it's super cool. Oh yeah, here's like the buttons on the inside too, by the way. And as you can see, it's my right controller, except that's just because I didn't take the sticker off. And then it's not visible, but it's not even visible to me. It's just these buttons are all capacitive touch. So it means that if I rest my finger on the button, then the controller knows that my finger's on the button, just like your phone touch screen or whatever. Same with the trigger. So the reason I bring up the capacitive touch buttons is because that was the biggest thing that the Index owner did not like. He did not like using any of the other controllers. So the Index has like, oh man, I should pull up a picture actually. Let me find a picture of the Index controllers. Hang on. Okay, well anyway, good enough. So you guys can see these are the Index controllers. So they go like on your hand, and they stay on your hand even when you let go. And so that's a thing that, like, you know, these Oculus Touch controllers don't do, is you know, you have to kind of hang on to them with your like bottom two fingers, your pinky and ring finger, and then you can do everything else with your other three fingers. I think it feels quite natural to do that, actually, in a weird way. Like, you know, it feels natural for me, like when I'm holding a controller, to want to keep holding onto it. So that's like where I was at. I was like, yeah, it feels natural for me to hold onto my controller. With these ones, you're kind of meant to like actually let go. And so like when you're throwing objects and stuff, or like you're grabbing stuff, you're actually doing it with your whole hand. Not only that, but the whole side of this is all capacitive touch, so it senses each of your fingers individually. So like that's kind of the background on these controllers. Let me find, I mean, this is a picture of someone holding it. All of the pictures of this controller, by the way, are like people like with their palms open, and it's really funny to me because it's just like that's how they demonstrate that this is a Valve Index controller, I guess. It's like, oh look, I don't have to hold on to it. Anyway, so this was the biggest thing that I think people liked from the VR headset comparison. Like everybody. So like the guy who didn't use a VR headset at all preferred these controllers. The guy who owned the Index preferred these controllers. The guy who owned the Vive preferred these controllers. And then there's me, the odd one out. I did not prefer these controllers. That sounds kind of weird, but yeah, I mean, they're great controllers. They're awesome, but like, what would I say? They're not as like, they look like they're super ergonomic, but they're not. Like, I mean, they're ergonomic enough, but like, how do I explain it? You have to like bend your thumb like down a lot to like get to the buttons there. So like, there's like the buttons and the joystick on top, and some people's hands are okay for it, but my hands were not. Like, my thumb was like way, like I had to like really pull down to get to the buttons, and I tried adjusting it a bunch of different ways and couldn't quite get it. I'm sure if I owned one of those controllers and I had more time, like I would fiddle around with it a lot more and like really get it to fit well. But yeah, it was definitely like, it's not like you can just grab it and be comfortable with it. Whereas like with these, like the Oculus Touch controllers, you can just grab these and like they fit your hand right away. I mean, you know, like even when I first tried them out, I had no fiddling to do. They just worked. Yes, they have individual finger controls. Yes, so they track each of your fingers, which is really cool. And the games that did use it, so like the hand lab demo was like super cool. You know, like they make you shake hands with the robot, and then you have to like shake hands harder. So actually they also tell how hard you're gripping the controller. There's a lot of tech in these controllers. Just in case you guys are curious, these controllers cost $300 roughly. Just the controllers. So like they are very fancy. They're really fancy controllers. But that was the main thing that people liked. I was literally the only person that like wasn't a fan. I mean, you know, I liked it. Like, it was super cool. And like, I think the games that use it are like that make good use of them are really cool. So like, you shake the hand and it tells how much you grip. And like, you can do like rock, paper, scissors. That's what you do with the robot. And then you do like a bunch of other stuff, just kind of showcasing the controllers. But like most games, even Half-Life Alyx, like Half-Life Alyx supports it, but like ergonomics aside, yeah, the Index is like the one that has the tech for sure. Oh, sorry, I never transitioned to put the chat in. There we go. But yeah, like everything aside, like just objectively speaking, the Valve Index is like the most tech heavy. It has the most features and the most quality, I would say. That being said, there were still things that really impressed me about the Valve Index. So, yeah, controllers is the most interesting one to talk about, though, because like that was the biggest difference, I think, between the headsets was the controllers. The Vive controllers are like, oh my god, let me pull up the Vive controllers. You guys seen these? This is a Vive controller. Yeah. I'm trying to find a picture of someone holding one. I guess there we go. That's a good... I don't know why they're holding it quite like that, but whatever. Thick. Yeah. Playing Beat Saber with these, I felt like I was holding clubs. I was like... Oh man, they were so heavy. I grabbed them by the top ring because like they are just so big. Club Saber. That being said, they feel, I mean, honestly, for Beat Saber, like competitive Beat Saber aside, they felt the best for Beat Saber. Cause like, you actually feel like you're swinging, you know what I mean? Like with these little controllers, it just feels like I'm flapping my arms around. But like with the Vive, like you are swinging a friggin', yeah, beat club saber. Exactly. Yeah. So like the controllers were so different, like between the three headsets. I think none of us preferred the Vive controllers. These ones were like archaic in comparison. They don't have capacitive touch. They have like grip buttons on the side. I'm trying to pull up a better image. So like there's like a grip button here on the side. And then there's no joystick. There's just the big trackpad button. They get the job done, they work, but yeah, I mean, they're not like, there's so much, I feel like, more hand presence with the Oculus Touch and the Index controllers. Like, you actually feel like your hands are in VR, you know? Whereas with this one, it feels like you're just holding a big-ass controller that you use for, like, I don't know, doing things in VR. Excuse me, sorry, I keep hiccuping. Does it have any unique features? No, not really. And none that I know of. We didn't really talk about it too much. It was just such... We kind of used the Vive, and then we were like, okay, let's move on. Like, I mean, the main feature would be this trackpad, right? There's this huge track. It's pretty big, which, like, can be a feature. But I just don't know what you would use it for. Like, practically speaking, I don't know... Tapping controller tier list? Yeah, maybe. Just all the controllers. Yeah, if I had to make a tier list... Well, okay, if I had to make a tier list for, like, everybody in general, I would put, like, the Index controllers in S tier, the Oculus Touch in A tier, and then these ones would be, like... I don't know. I'll give them C tier. Because they're usable. It's not like they're... Like, you can still do VR stuff with them. It's not like they're atrocious, but... And, like, they, you know, they don't look super comfortable, but they are. Like, they're not terrible to hold on to. But they're just not there. But my personal tier list would actually be Oculus Touch controllers might be S tier. I've never tried the... So there's actually... These are version 2 of the Oculus Touch controllers, and I've heard version 1 is even better. A lot of people think version 1 of the Oculus Touch controllers are the best ones. Let me show you. These ones. So these are the Generation 1 Oculus Touch controllers. And a lot of people consider these kind of the gold standard. And I would bet I would probably too. Just because they're so similar to these ones. Yeah, I think it makes sense in a way. Like, you know, if you're using new, like if all of the controllers you're using are brand new to you, that you would prefer the one with the most features. If the ergonomics felt better, it would be above Oculus for sure. Yeah, like the main reason I liked the Oculus controllers was because of the ergonomics. And it's just because I value ergonomics so much. Like I really didn't feel like the Valve Index controllers added a whole lot for me. Like the games that used the finger tracking were really cool. I still play all of the games with my Oculus Touch controller and like play through the whole game. So like in comparison, like, you know, it didn't like make me more immersed or anything. Like it didn't really like do that for me. But it was really cool. And I think if I got more used to the controllers, they would grow on me. Like, you have to remember, I only spent, like, an hour or two really playing with the Index. I mean, not even, because, like, we had 4 people cycling out, and, like, you know, we were trying all the different headsets and stuff. So, like, I had only did a few things with the Index, and I didn't have a lot of time with it, in a way. But I had enough time. I mean, I spent... a lot of my time was spent adjusting the controllers and the headset, like, with the Index. Whereas with the other two, I just kind of slapped them on. So that was kind of a downside of the Index, but it's not a real downside, because like if you owned an Index, you would just make those adjustments one time, and then everything would be set up for you, and you can just use it. But that was a problem with sharing. It was like it had to be adjusted, I think, more so than the other headsets. Oh yeah, so let me talk about the visuals. Big tapping. Yeah. Okay, let's just talk about very specific things. So when I put the Index on, first thing I noticed, very first thing, was not the resolution, it was not the frame rate, it was the field of view. Like, the Index's field of view is noticeably larger than the Quest or the Vive. I think with the Quest and the Vive, you feel a little more like you're looking through tubes, whereas with the Index, you're a little more, it's a little wider. Actually, most of that was vertical, by the way. So like most of the field of view difference was not a horizontal increase, but it was actually a vertical increase, which was interesting. Horizontally, it was a little bit wider, but not like... It's also weird because it depends on the individual too. Like depending on your face shape and stuff, you can get different FOVs. So yeah, I don't know. It's hard to compare. But yeah, so, you know, wider field of view, which you imagine is like really good. Yeah, and then once that was the crazy part. With the Index, you can adjust the lens distance to your eyes. So like, you can imagine if you push the lenses closer to your eyes, then you get more field of view. And the Index is crazy. Like, I knew all about these headsets. Like, I've read about them, but I did not realize how close those lenses can get to your eyes. I was jamming, like, I didn't even mean to. I just started turning the knob, and it was like, oh, wow, the field of view increased. And then they're just pushing into my eye sockets. like I had the freaking Index, like, in my eyes. I was like, ah, and I was like trying to stop it. I was like trying to dial it back and like kept pushing. I'm like, ah, like, there's too much VR. It was really funny. So with the lenses furthest away from the headset, it was like a little more, it was still better, like more field of view than the Quest, but like not by much. But pushing them up to your eyes, that's what made it really like, whoa, like that's a bigger field of view for sure. Yep. Yeah, and I would say the clarity looked really good too. So that's like another thing. Like ultimately how clear does it look? You know, it's like, forget the numbers of resolution, blah blah blah, whatever. Like just how clear does it look? And it looked pretty clear. Like it looked noticeably, I would say, clearer than the Vive for sure. With the Quest, it wasn't too noticeable, I didn't feel, which is surprising. You know, my headset's a $400 headset. The $1,000 headset didn't look that much more clear. Like, that's probably get shit on for saying that. I'm sure some people disagree with that opinion. But the guy who used the Index said when he put on the Quest, he didn't mind anything about it, like, visually. So that says a lot, which is very interesting. Yep. And resolution of the Quest and the Index are actually the same, which is interesting. The pixel layout is different. So you're supposed to get like way less screen door, supposed to be way more clear on the Index. I did notice there was a lot less screen door effect. Yeah. I mean, we're all pretty techie nerdy people, I would say, though. I think it was just like, I think his point was just that he didn't like, you know, if you're not like trying to stare down the differences, like find the differences, like he didn't mind the Quest at all. Whereas when he tried the Vive, he noticed, like, he was like, oh, this resolution's ass. Like it was noticeably worse. So like, yeah, it was interesting that the Quest and the Index were like on a different tier than the Vive in terms of visuals. And it's cool that like there wasn't a huge difference between the Vive and the Index, or Quest and the Index. I mean, I should talk about the visuals of the Vive. So the Vive, like, lower resolution, you could see the screen door effect very clearly. For those that don't know, screen door effect is when you can see like the gaps in between the pixels, or like, you know, if you shove your face into your monitor and like find the pixel grid, then you'll see the pixel grid. But yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like. Yeah. And so VR, since the displays are so close to your eyes, you know, like resolution's a problem for VR. So, you know, the Vive is like, I forget the resolution of the Vive, but I think it's like 1080p effectively. Oh, it's 1080 by 1200 per eye. Yeah, so it's about 1080p, you can call it, per eye. Whereas the Quest and the Index are 1440p per eye. And you could definitely tell. Like, it's very obvious. But even on the Quest, you can see the gaps between the pixels. Like, I can see the pixel grid. On the Index, it was harder to find. I would say the Index had a better display for sure. Yeah, okay, so tracking's super interesting. So this is my Quest. This is how it tracks too. It has these cameras on the side, right? So it's got that camera and that camera, and then those two cameras on the bottom. Oh my god, I can't hold it up. There we go. There's the 4 cameras. So it looks out and it sees the world. You know, it sees your living room. It picks out like features of the living room, like corner of the couch, you know, corner of the table, stuff like that. And so it knows where you are in 3-dimensional space. And then it also uses the camera and these rings on these controllers. You can't see anything, but there's infrared lights that actually it tracks around the ring. And that's how it tracks everything. Which leads to a lot of limitations. So, for instance, what if the controller goes outside of the view of the camera? You're kind of screwed, right? And I mean, when you break tracking in VR, it is very immersion breaking. Like, that is probably the worst thing. I would say that's probably the worst thing you can do with a VR headset is, like, if you fuck up the tracking, it's just suddenly horrible, no matter how good the other stuff is. So yeah, that's the Quest tracking. The way it gets around that is it uses, like, I mean, you know, there's like accelerometers and stuff in the controllers. So like if you like bring it around your head quickly but bring it back, then like it'll track that whole thing totally fine. Another thing too is like, you know, you're like, oh, like behind the back, like, or when you turn around and stuff, it's gonna lose all that tracking from your controllers. But realistically, in games, you never really use your hands outside of where you're looking. Like even in real life, I mean, like, you know, you don't really no-look grab stuff. Like I wouldn't do that, you know, I have to look over temporarily, and when you do that, you get your tracking. So like I would look here and like grab my water. So I've actually like really don't find any issue with the inside. It's called inside out tracking, and I don't find any issue with inside out tracking of the Quest at all. But also how fast it can track, you know? So it's only tracking at 30 frames a second, which sounds crazy. How do I play Beat Saber with my tracking at 30 frames a second? It turns out that it's just using the accelerometers between each of those frames. So it's like it has like absolute precision or absolute tracking every 30th of a second. And then it's interpolating all of that with the accelerometers in the controller. And it works really good. Like, really, really good. The Index controllers, though, they use lighthouse tracking. So, like, there's, like, these... Maybe I should pull up another... Oh, my God. Can I pull up an image? Oh, whatever. Well, anyway, it's a little box, whatever. It's about the size of, like... It's actually even smaller than I thought it was going to be. It's like the size of my palm. Like, it's pretty small. And inside of it is, like... a motor that rotates, and there's like laser sweeps that it does across the room. So it's like doing these horizontal and vertical, sorry, like that, I guess. Ooh, that's hard to do. So it does these like laser sweeps across the room, and then with each of those sweeps, it hits sensors in the controllers and the headset that tell it absolutely where it is relative to the base stations. Yeah, $200 box. And you basically need 2 of them if you want to do room scale tracking. Some people say more is better, so like you can do up to 4. From what we did over the weekend, 2 is like totally plenty. Like I don't know why, you know, if you're using 4, you must have like a really big play space or something weird going on, like maybe some, you know, the reason you want 2 is because, like, you know, you can imagine if there's a sensor like sitting over here, and like I'm using my controller here, but my head is in between the sensor and the controller, it can't see the controller. Or really what I should say is the controller can't see the sensor. Yeah, so with the Valve Index kit, you get 2. Like if you buy the full kit, you'll get the headset, 2 controllers, and 2 of these base stations. And yeah, those sweeps happen like so I can't remember how frequently, but they are friggin' fast. Basically, effectively, the index is like 1,000 hertz tracking rate. And the question, though, is, did I notice? The answer is no. I didn't notice. No one did. We didn't even talk about the tracking. Like, the Quest tracks totally fine. And the index tracking is amazing, but at the end of the day, we didn't really notice. Does that mean that the tracking is, like, does that mean, oh, like, all of these fancy features are, you know, not necessary? Like, does that mean, oh, like, I'm not, like, you know, I'm not utilizing the features of the tracking? And then I would also say no, but it depends on what you do, and it depends on the games, again. With the games we tried and the things we were doing, I really don't think external tracking is necessary. Just, like, at all. But if you do things like full body tracking, or for example, like, there are some, like, quirks to the inside out tracking of the Quest that might lead you to want to do this tracking solution. For instance, the Quest requires optical tracking of your room and the controllers, which means if the lighting is not good, so, like, it can be too bright or too dark, and your Quest will have trouble tracking. So you have to make sure you have, like, good room lighting. I found the Quest is, like, I've never really had problems other than when I tried to play the Quest outside in the sun. It doesn't work in the sun, I can tell you that much. Whereas the index wouldn't care about any of that. Like, it's shooting lasers. They do not care about the lighting in your room. You could play in pitch black, which is cool. And that does lead to one actually interesting limitation of these, which is, like, you can get tracking errors if you have like big mirror in your room or something, or like big screen TVs. Like, I've heard those can mess up your tracking because the lasers can bounce off of those, and then your headset will, like, think there's another base station or something. So yeah, there's, like, even with this tracking solution, there's still, like, a little bit of that limitation, but overall it's the most robust and fancy tracking. But it did bring up a question to me. It brings up actually a really interesting question too, which is, would this tracking solution even exist for consumers if we had started with inside-out tracking? And that's, I'm not sure. Like, it's really, really nice that Valve, like, you know, put in the effort, like, back in the early, you know, like, whatever, like 2014 days or 2015 days, to, like, put the R&D into this and make it happen for the Vive for 2016 or whatever, whenever it came out. But that was just because there was no inside-out tracking solution at the time, you know, that we weren't really, like, working with that at the time. So nowadays, where inside out's getting more popular and, like, it's getting robust, right? Like, that's the key, is, like, inside out tracking can mess up really easily, but, like, it's getting more and more robust. So yeah, it did bring up the question to me of, like, if the really robust inside out tracking had existed, would they ever have bothered with this stuff? I mean, you know, it just makes your product more expensive. And I bet people would be like, it's so funny on the internet, so many people are like, this tracking's so much better. Like, oh, I need the lighthouse tracking. Like, that's the tracking solution. Like, inside out tracking has problems, you know? And it's like, no, probably not. That being said, depending on your headset, it could matter. Like, the Windows mixed reality headsets only have 2 cameras on the front. But anyway, there's only 2 cameras on the front, and that's it. And that's kind of a problem, because then it only tracks, like, right in front of you. But the Quest, like, sees pretty far around you. Like I would say, like, up until my shoulders are comfortable going back, and then, like, you know, it goes, like, pretty much down the front of me and up above my head. So, like, I can pretty much do everything. Interesting, because a lot of what you pay for the Valve Index is those little boxes, those base stations. They're like $150 each on Valve's website, or Steam, the Steam store page. So yeah, they just make the headset more expensive. It does, yes, exactly. Yeah, it does depend on what you do, though, like, for sure. Yeah, it's very true. Like, if you do anything with full body tracking, or, like, you know, like, competitive VR gaming, like, Like, I can imagine games where, competitively speaking, you might want to do like effectively a 360 type thing. But yeah. So my rant about tracking is basically for me personally, I feel no reason to get external tracking. But the full body stuff sounds pretty cool, so I don't know. Maybe that's maybe the full body stuff would be something I can get into someday, but this goes into the index design actually, but essentially from my point of view, I saw a lot of glare. Like there's like, it's hard to explain. It's kind of like, you know, like the corner of a glass or something might have like the reflections on it. Like it kind of like some of that happens like when you're putting it on and adjusting it. Like there's like these reflections. And the reason that's happening is because Valve uses 2 lenses for each eye. So like it has like double lenses in front of each eye. I can go into much detail on that actually. It's very interesting as to why they did that. And could you see your own eye? No, I couldn't. I don't know for sure actually if those reflections were due to that, but it was definitely way more reflections than the Quest or the Vive for sure. They're called God rays too. Like if you have like white text on a black background that you're looking at in VR, like how much glare comes off of that, you can see in VR. And the Quest, I mean, I noticed it in every headset, but like the index was like the worst. Like it was the worst one for that actually, which is interesting. Another thing that people talk about a lot is like the black levels too, because like the Quest and the HTC Vive are OLED displays, so they can show like true black. But the index was LCD, so it has like a backlighting. But I didn't really care too much. I played Half-Life Alyx. I played some of the darkest scenes I could. I would definitely say though that the headset of the 3 that made me feel the most immersed, the most immersive headset is, I don't know if you guys want to guess actually. It's a pretty like index, Quest, Vive. At the end of the day, the most immersive was the Vive. I felt the most immersed in the Vive, which is super interesting because that one is the one I've been shitting on a lot. But at the end of the day, for some reason, and I can't even explain why, I felt like the Vive had some of the best immersion. So I don't know. I don't know which headset to even prefer anymore. I think I do have some ideas as to why. I think part of it was the like there's like always a gap between kind of your nose and the, you know, like I can kind of peek out from the headsets. Vive is a joke. Yeah. That being said, I would never like recommend the Vive over the other two. Like I think the immersion's high enough on all of them that it's fine. Like who cares? But there was a little bit of like, I don't know, like I felt a little more in the world. I don't know how to explain it. I think it might just be due to the eyes though. So it like when you put the Vive on your face, it's like a seal. And so like there is nothing but VR, you know, like you are totally in it. So even though the resolution was lower, even though the field of view wasn't that great, even though blah 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 blah, at the end of the day, it was super responsive. It felt better on my face. Oh yeah, I didn't talk about comfort. Holy shit, that's a huge topic. Because comfort matters a lot, so much. In fact, I think that was one of the biggest things that I how did I say it? Cared about. So yeah, the Quest I've modified and, you know, I've learned how to wear it, all that kind of stuff. The straps are pretty simple on the Quest. So like, I'm just gonna talk about each headset individually and then I'll explain more of my thoughts. But the Quest is just the 3 straps on, you know, so there's one on top and 2 on the sides. So you just strap it to your face and then strap it onto your head. And I think it's pretty simple, easy to wear. but it was kind of the least comfortable. I would definitely say the Quest feels a little more like something sitting on your like face rather than your head. Do you know what I mean? Like if you wear a hat or a helmet, you know, like, yeah, you know something's on your head, but like it's, you know, it's on your head. The Quest is on your face. So that's the problem with the Quest. It feels like it's on your face. And that's why I'm always like moving my mouth while wearing the Quest. It's just like I'm always adjusting my cheeks because it's always resting there. Even with my comfort mods. So, yeah. Vive was super comfortable, actually. I was super happy with the comfort of the Vive. But I mentioned the Quest straps because the Vive also uses straps. But they're way harder to use. Like, the straps are, like, more complicated. It's more like playing on belts, you know? Like, you have, like, belts on your head. So yeah, the Vive was like, it felt like putting on a diaper on your face. So that was the equivalent. But it's better than a brick on your face. But it felt like a diaper on your face. So that was the Vive. So yeah, the Index like crushes them in comfort, like just total crushes. I put on the Index and I had to spend, so the Index was actually maybe the most complicated to put on though. There's just a lot of dials and a lot of things you can dial in and stuff in the straps. And I just wasn't comfortable with it. But like, I'm sure if I put in some more time too, it would be like even more comfortable. I mean, it already felt pretty comfortable and I don't even know how to explain it either. It's just, I really think the strap over your head, like lifts a lot of the weight off and it's like a lot more balanced of a headset. So like the back and the front are more balanced, whereas the Quest is just all on the front. And there's like a nice little adjustment knob on the back of the Index, so you can like tighten it to your head. So yeah, that was something that impressed me a lot about the Index. I definitely didn't get the fit right though, because it like when I looked down, it would still like slide up my face for some reason. I don't know why, and that doesn't happen with other headsets, so I don't know why that. I must have just had it on wrong somehow. Like, it's weird when you talk about when I talk about headsets, it's like I want to talk about the differences, but at the end of the day, like honestly, we weren't like talking about comfort a bunch, you know. It wasn't like we cared a lot about comfort, you know. I think like in terms of long-term use, like using it for like more than an hour or two, like then you'll definitely notice the comfort more. But they were all comfortable enough that, you know, it was okay to use for like sharing and hanging out and whatever. Like we didn't care. So that's my one aside is like we talk about comfort as if it's like the end all be all of the headsets, but like it's okay. Like they were all okay. I would definitely say though, if you get a Quest, like you definitely should mod it. Like the original Quest, like if I had put my original facial interface on and taken off the counterweight that I have on there, by the way, this is a battery bank, but I also use it as a counterweight to try to like lift some of the weight off of my head or off of my face. If I didn't do that, the Quest feels awful, like just truly actually awful. Yeah, so then the comfort's actually bad enough to notice. But yeah, I would say the other headsets are pretty comfortable. The Index is just nice because like you can get the comfort just right and then you can adjust the lenses to your eyes, and that's awesome. Because like with some other headsets you have to do a trade-off. Like for example with the Rift S, I feel like you would need to have a little bit of a trade-off of like how tight you make it versus how close you can be to the display. And so it's like obviously like if you keep cranking the tightness, like it'll get more uncomfortable on your face, but you get better visuals. So it's like you have to make that trade-off. With the Index, you don't have to make that trade-off. That's the big difference, I think, is like the Index has enough adjustments on it. Like there's like a bunch of different, there's like a knob on the back, a knob on the side, and like the straps on the top. And like with those adjustments, you can get whatever visuals you want along with whatever comfort you want, which is awesome. So that was one of the most impressive things to me about the Index. One of my favorite things about the Index was the audio. They use these speakers that hang in front of your ears, and it sounds amazing. Like, oh my gosh. I think that was my favorite thing about the Index, actually, now that I think about it. Let me see if I can find a picture of someone wearing it. Okay, well, there's this dude. But, okay, so you can see these, like, speakers that hover in front of your ears. And, like, yeah, to me, that was, like, a total game changer, actually. So, like, tracking was not a game changer. Visuals of the Index were not a game changer for me. But the comfort and the audio were game changers for me. Like, those were things about this headset that, like, were significant upgrades, I would say, over the other two. I don't even know if the HTC Vive had built-in audio. I think it just, you have to, like, wear headphones or something. And then the Quest has built-in audio, but it sounds like your phone speakers in a cup, you know? It's like your phone speakers, like, near your ear or something. Like, it does not sound great. Those Valve Index speakers, holy shit, they sound really good. Like, probably as good as my actual headphones, which is crazy because there's nothing even on your ear. So it feels great because you're in VR and you don't have big headphones on your ear, you know? It's like that's something about VR, I feel like, you know, I mean, inherently, you're just sticking a bunch of stuff to your face and head. And, like, wearing headphones on top of that is, like, just a lot of stuff. You feel like you're, you know, just, like, in a friggin' VR contraption that, like, encompasses your whole head, you know? And I'm lucky I don't sweat a lot out of my head, but people who do, man, that's, like, super hot, super uncomfortable, you know? So, yeah, these speakers, total game changer, in my opinion. Like, oh my god. Those, like, having really good audio without having to put on headphones is awesome. It's, like, I would rant about that forever, I feel like. So, yeah, that was comfort and audio, two big things that I really liked about the Index. Visuals were good, too, but I wasn't, like, despite me saying all of these really good things about the Index visuals, I would say, in general, my reaction to putting on the Index was, oh, whoa, cool. You know, like, it was cool. And then, you know, playing around with it. But the audio was like, this is making my experience different. The comfort was like, this is making my experience different. The controllers was, this is making my experience different. So the visuals were not the thing that, like, wowed me the most about the Index. Despite them being kind of, like, objectively the best in a lot of ways. So, yeah, there you go. But like I said with the controllers, I actually didn't prefer them. So, like, the Index would not have been worth it for me personally. Like, if I spent $1,000 on an Index, I would have, I mean, I would enjoy it, but I don't know if I would have been like, wow, that was really worth my $1,000. Like, that's a lot of money. So instead, I have a Quest, and I'll be getting the Reverb G2. Oh, man. I'm so excited for the Reverb G2. And I'm even more excited now that I tried all these different headsets. Yeah, so this is the Reverb G2 that's coming out this fall. And I did pre-order one, so I'm actually getting one of these, so I'll be able to talk about that too. But yeah, this is $600, and the lenses were designed by Valve. It has 4 cameras on the outside, so, and I've heard okay things about the tracking so far. Oops. So the tracking should be good. Which is really important. That's the part that scared me the most. If the tracking doesn't work, then like I said, the headset doesn't matter anymore. Not relevant. But it has, check out those speakers. Those look exactly the same as the Valve Index speakers. And it's because they are the same speakers. Valve actually gave them their speakers to use on the headset. So, like, the Reverb G2 has, like, super comfortable interface. The headset's actually lighter than the Index. I didn't mention this, but the Index was actually the heaviest headset. Which sounds really weird considering how much I just ranted about how good the comfort was. But it was actually the heaviest headset. Just because it has all that stuff going on. There's all these knobs and all the lens adjustments and stuff, you know? It's like, it all adds weight. And there's 2 lenses per eye. It all adds weight. So this headset, the Reverb G2, will have, like, very lightweight. It's like one of the more lightweight headsets in general, let alone compared to the Valve Index. But it's supposed to have the same, like, it looks like it has the same kind of comfort solutions as the Index. So I've heard it's, like, hyper comfortable. Like, it's supposed to be the most comfortable headset on the market. So yeah, I'm just, like, so excited about this headset now. Because, like, the things I liked the most about the Index were the comfort and the audio. And then their controllers are going to be similar to Oculus Touch. So yeah, I'm just so excited. I totally thought that I would appreciate the index tracking and the frame rate of the index more than I did. But it turned out that those features were not things that I don't feel like I left desired, like, with those features. You know, it's like I didn't really feel like I needed them or even wanted them necessarily. Obviously, they're good features, but, like, you know. Yeah. Oh, that's another thing. That's a big drawback of the G2 is they don't have capacitive touch. So, like, you know, with the Oculus Touch controllers, you've got those sensors, like I mentioned, that tell if your fingers are touching the buttons. So you can do all of your gestures and stuff. But yeah, the G2 controllers do not have that. So that is a big drawback if you're really into VR chat. Yeah, the Valve Index, though, I don't know how long you were here, Panther, but yeah, the Valve Index, as my summary, was like, the visuals were pretty good, you know? They were the best visuals. Gotcha. Yeah, I'll just summarize real quick, but yeah, the visuals were the best among the headsets, but they were not like, oh wow, like, look at these visuals. I would say, like, even all three of the headsets compared to each other, the Vive, Quest, and Index, the visuals weren't like that far off all from each other. I might get shit on for saying that, but, like, the reality was we were all in VR, so it didn't matter. But yeah, the audio of the Index is awesome. The comfort is definitely next level. And those were, like, the most impressive things for me. And then the controllers were, like, you know, the controllers were the biggest differences between all of these headsets, and that's what, like, we all talked about, basically. I just personally liked the Oculus Touch controllers more. So, interestingly enough, I actually preferred these. But the other guys, so the guy who owned the Index preferred his Index controllers, as you might imagine. The guy who owned the Vive preferred the Index controllers. And then the guy who owned no VR headset, so he just tried all of these headsets and controllers basically for the first time, preferred the Index controllers. So basically, the Index controllers are fucking awesome. But, like, I personally, like, ergonomically speaking, I did not find them super ergonomic. Like, it could just be my hands, too. Like, maybe my hands just aren't super great for it, but, like, I don't know. I mean, this is my hand. I don't know. Seems like a normal hand, but I found my thumb, like, I could not reach the buttons easily. Like, it was hard, and I had to, like, oh yeah, interesting. Okay, there you go. So beatsaber streamers like the CV1 controllers. Yeah, I haven't used the CV1 controllers, but I want to, because I've heard really good things about them. They look very comfortable. But yeah, I want to show the what I'm talking about with my thoughts on the Valve Index controllers. This is a top-down view. You know, someone holding the controller, their pointer finger is on the trigger behind here, and then their thumb is here. My thumb extended, like, beyond the whole circle. Like, my thumb, like, extended beyond the whole damn thing, and, like, I tried adjusting the controller in multiple ways with this. There's, like, this little adjustment knob here that you can adjust the strap and stuff. But I would either not get all my fingers tracked, or have my thumb have to, like, contort, like, you know, to, like, bend a lot to, like, reach the buttons and joystick. So yeah, I totally did not find these controllers to be the most ergonomic for me. But that being said, I'm sure I would find a way to adjust them. Like, if I owned these controllers, I would adjust them and keep adjusting them and make it work. But at the end of the day, like, you know, with the Oculus Touch controllers, you can just grab these and they fit in your hand. Like, you grab them for the first time and they fit. I think the biggest thing I learned from this was that I'm not, like, I don't feel like I'm itching for an upgrade anymore, you know what I mean? Like my Quest actually holds up really well compared to all those headsets. Even the Index. The person who owned the Vive, his opinion before this was, oh man, I want to try to get a new, like, I've heard all these good things about the visuals. I want to get a new headset. The Index controllers look awesome. He was thinking about getting the Reverb G2 and then combining that with the Index controllers and the base stations, like making a hybrid setup. So this means a lot when I say this. With the Vive, initially thinking he's going to upgrade all this stuff, and then tried out the Index. He was no longer interested in upgrading his headset. That says a lot. The controllers, though, he wants those. He's definitely getting controllers. So he's just going to buy the controllers. But yeah, that says a lot about the differences between these headsets. If it was a really big difference, like really big, he would have bought it on a whim, you know? So like, it says a lot that he's okay with his Vive for now. And I agree with him. Like, I mean, you know, obviously if I'm buying a headset right now, I would never buy a Vive. Like, you know, it's a step backward. But like, but if I already owned a Vive after trying out these 3 headsets, I would be like, it's okay. I'll stick with the Vive for a bit. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just not $1,000 improvement. Yeah. So yeah, there you go. Your CV1 probably holds up pretty well. But yeah, he really liked the index controllers, so he's definitely interested in getting those. And I think that's where the biggest difference was between these headsets, was the controllers. Everything else is kind of like negligible in comparison, I would say. Audio was really nice though on the index, and comfort. Those are my 2 favorite things. Dude, there's so many things to talk about. Just setting up the setup. So like setting up base stations, not hard, actually. I thought it was gonna be harder than it was, but no, I mean, you know, you'll find a way to mount them. It's not a big deal. And like, we just placed them on top of stuff. Like, we placed them on top of the edge of the desk there, and then on top of that shelf there. Like, so we didn't even mount anything. We just placed them. They worked fine. So setup not too bad in that regard. But I gotta say, I appreciate Oculus's setup system so much. Steam VR works, but it's like, you know, you start it up and then you like walk around the room with your headset on or controller or whatever, you know, and then it like auto creates a rectangle within the curvy, messed up ellipse that you drew. It just makes a rectangle and then calls that your boundary, and you can't double check where exactly it is in your environment until you're in VR. You know, you can't like adjust it really without just restarting and doing the whole thing again. Yeah, they were not bothered by that, but that's because they were used to doing that. I for sure feel like the Oculus system worked really well. Like, you literally just push start, and then in VR you just have pass through, and you just draw your boundary exactly how you want it, and that's it. So that was something that, like, again, it doesn't matter in terms of, I think you shouldn't like base a purchase decision based on that, but it was a feature that I really liked with the Oculus headset. And also just pass through in general. Like the other headsets, at least we didn't talk about it or show it, but like with the Oculus one, you just double tap the headset and like you can just see the room and just like go grab a glass of water and then do it again and be back in VR. So yeah, that was a difference. Which the Quest actually, that was probably the kind of the one thing that the Quest like did really, really well. I think it's just the Oculus software is really good. And the cameras. Oh, and the 6-meter cable. That was something I didn't mention about all the headsets either, but oh my god, that's another thing to talk about. The Vive cable is like horrible. Like it's so archaic compared to the Index, and the Quest obviously just has its link cable. But like the Vive cable had like this cable that came out that like split into like 3 cables and then like went to a breakout box, and then that box went to other things, and there were just cables everywhere. And like the person who owned the Vive owner, had like taped a bunch of these together like with white like duct tape or something, like just so that he could like have some sort of cable management happening. Dude, the Vive cables, oh my god. Like, it makes sense though, because like, you know, they couldn't predict the future of computers either. Like, you know, it's like computers nowadays are like, you know, USB-C is like more common on motherboards and graphics cards now, and like all that kind of stuff. And they used HDMI instead of DisplayPort. Like, it's just like a bunch of stuff. So yeah, the Index was like, I would say similar in kind of like the fundamental design. Like if I describe it as, oh, well, there was a cable coming out of the Index, and then it split into this, it actually made a connection, like one connector, and then split into 3 cables that went to the, you know, DisplayPort, USB, and power, like just literally like plugging into a power bar. But it was just so much more, like they did all the cable management, you know what I mean? Like the Valve Index cables are already cable managed, whereas the Vive ones were like, oh my god, they were all over the place, dude. It was like they had to make it adaptable for whatever PC you're using, but by doing so they've made it horribly cable managed. Poorly cable managed, I guess is the word. Yep, that's my takeaway too, Jesus. It's like, even though the Index like generally does everything right, you know, and it has a lot of cool features and all of the bells and whistles, even with all of that, there's still benefits to the other headsets. I would say as an overall, like I you know, obviously I would still agree with reviewers of like, yeah, like, you know, if you're ignoring money and you just want the best headset, you probably just go with the Valve Index. But honestly, you know, I'm really happy with my Oculus Quest now. Like, I mean, I was before, but like I'm even happier now. Like, it's just like, it's exactly what I wanted and needed. Like, I wanted a headset that was versatile. I was able to bring it over to my family's place. Like, so I went to Canada with my headset and like shared it with my whole family, and like I could bring it to each place. We never had to set up like sensors or a computer or anything like that, right? You just slap it on. I get to show people beatsaber and super hot and all the cool stuff and do the little VR tutorials, and like people get to experience it. My uncle bought a Quest, so my uncle bought VR even though he had no interest in it beforehand, because I showed it to him and he was like, holy shit, that's so cool. Yeah, basically you can't go wrong with any of them except the Vive Cosmos. Do not get the Vive Cosmos. But otherwise, yeah. Yeah, you can't really go wrong with any of them. I don't have any experience with the Windows mixed reality headsets, so I don't want to speak for those. And I do not think that I think those headsets are a little bit more of a gamble in some way, just because they only have 2 cameras on the front. So like the tracking is a lot more limited, I would say. And as you know, my opinion already is if the tracking's breaking, then, you know, your experience is going downhill really fast. So like Windows mixed reality, there are some cheap ones, but yeah, their controllers are also really weird. So yeah, I'm super excited because like I pre-ordered a Reverb G2, so I'll be able to talk about that in in a month, probably a month or two. And I'm just super excited because the biggest differences in visual quality came from the resolution, I think. You know, the FOV was bigger and the frame rate was faster for the Index than the Quest. But those weren't like the main things that I really appreciated from it. Like, I really appreciated that the LCD screen pixel layout was such that it didn't look as much like a screen door effect anymore. And so that basically means that resolution was the main thing I wanted more of. Super interesting. Like comparing all of these headsets, and that's what made the Vive look not great. It was the resolution. You know, it's hard to read text on it. You have to like strain your eyes to read simple things. So yeah, that's pretty much that. Because I think, honestly, my opinion would be that resolution is the biggest thing that headsets need to improve on. Probably, yeah. I mean, field of view is really important too, and refresh rate's important too, but those weren't the things that like made me impressed by the Valve Index visuals. It was really just the clarity of the headset. And the Reverb G2 is supposed to be like ultra clear, like that's its whole thing. You know, they had the lenses designed by Valve, single lenses, so they won't have those glare effects. Colors are supposed to be good, you know, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we'll see how I feel about it after I get it. Maybe I'll be like giving another chat like this, and I'll be like, so guys, I tried out the G2, and you know what, it's just not that different than any of the other headsets. But it had this really nice thing going for it, which was the you know, the strap was cool, like something stupid, you know. And now I really feel like I've talked about everything. Like, I've talked about everything down to the fucking cables. Like, that is everything. You're all out. I'm out too. I can't even think of more to talk about for it. Like, I blabbed so much. Yeah, of course. I'm glad you guys stopped by. I mean, you know, I would have been also totally fun, because I was talking to Jesus about this. I was like, should I just like do a video or a stream or what? So yeah, it would have also been totally cool if it was just me and Jesus and I was just chatting to Jesus. But I'm really glad you guys could join by, and I'm really glad that you guys got something out of it too, whether or not you had a VR headset. Yeah, you were joking. Oh, about the VR, Pokemon streamer. I thought for a second you were saying you were joking about this being super informative. I was like, it was informative and sharing your experience. Thank you. And like, I'm just joking. Like, fuck you, tapping.